everyone, I'm Carolyn, and welcome back to another episode of As I See It. So today I'm going to answer an email that I got from a viewer on my other channel. I recently crossed the border into Mexico for some migraine meds and a chili relleno. So I crossed the border like I've done 6 times, maybe 5 or 6 times over the last 5 years. I shot video about my experience, and what I shared is that this was the most secured and thorough border crossing I've had in the 5 years that I have been living on the road crossing into Mexico. And my statement about that was, look, the borders aren't wide open. People want you to believe the borders are wide open, but they're really not. Look at how thorough it was, and it was a lot more thorough, a lot more steps I had to go through this time, and a lot longer waits and things like that. And a lot of people got really upset, and they're like, you idiot, of course it's secure at the border, it's the rest of the border that's the problem. And I'm like, yeah, okay. The point was that if Biden had wide open borders, wide open, if he was doing absolutely nothing about immigration, do you really think the border itself and the checkpoints 10 miles, 20 miles in would be more secure than usual? That makes no sense, right? So I got an email from a viewer, Eva, who said, I want you to hear another side of the debate. And I was a little worried to see what it was, but I hovered over it, and I'm like, okay, it's a Tucker Carlson video. She wants me to hear what Tucker Carlson has to say about the border. Initially, I dismissed it. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to listen to this. And I'm like, you know what? I'll go ahead and listen to it. Let's see what Tucker Carlson had to say about the border. So in essence, I'm not going to make you watch him. I'm not going to put the video up here. But in a nutshell, the video was about the skyrocketing violent crime and gun crime in Houston. And Houston is a border city, so therefore all the crime is because of immigration. And it's Joe Biden's fault because his borders are wide open and he's not doing anything. He just, the stupid liberals just are welcoming cartels and guns and all kinds of things. So that's the video in a nutshell. I immediately had a million questions about his sources. Where did he get his information? Where did the data come from? Give me numbers and stats about gun crime in Houston versus the rest of the country. And if you listen to Tucker Carlson, Houston was this beautiful, peaceful mecca until January 2021, and then all of a sudden it all went to hell. I really wanted to know, and I knew it would be easy to find, the rise in gun crime and homicide. I wanted that piece of data linking the rise in homicide to guns smuggled into the United States or the cartels seeping into the United States. I'll put a link to his video below if you want to look at it, but that's basically what he said. Showed all the footage of, there's a lot of cartel stuff going on in Mexico right now. He showed that footage and basically said it's coming to the United States. Watch out, be scared, hide in your house because the cartels are coming and bringing guns, and that's why Houston is a mess right now. So that is what I want to address today. I did the research Tucker Carlson did not do. Or maybe he did, right? All right, so I'm going to focus on 3 key things that Tucker Carlson said in the video. Number 1, Tucker's claim that Houston's gun and violent crime is unlike anything else in the country. It's just ridiculously, no other city in the country is experiencing this, and it's because of illegal immigration. The second claim I'm going to talk about is that Biden is all about keeping the borders wide open, no accountability, no punishment, that the border is just open for everybody and everything, including cartels and drugs and guns. So that's the second point I want to talk about. The third is Tucker's claim that Houston's increase in gun violence is indeed from smuggling guns of war, as he calls them, from Mexico and the cartels. That, again, he thinks the cartels, he wants you to think, I don't know that he thinks this, but he wants you to believe that all that dangerous cartel stuff is being exported to the United States, along with the people, who, by the way, who are trying to escape that and who want a better life. Number 1, Tucker's claims that Houston's gun crime is exploding unlike any other city in the United States. So Tucker made it sound like Houston is anomalous among the big cities for a spike in violent crime. He also made it sound like this only happened since Biden took office. That, like I said, Houston was this mecca of peace and wonderful place to live until January 20th, 2021, and then all of a sudden it all went to hell. And of course, he blamed all of Houston's problems on the so-called open border policy of Joe Biden. So I did some research about violent crimes in Houston versus the rest of the country. Let's look at this because this is important. You can't look at anything in a funnel, in a vacuum. You have to look at the big picture. And yeah, just Eva, I hope you're here and I hope you'll listen. So here are some facts. Gun violence is rising across the United States. In every major city pretty much in the United States, we're seeing an increase in gun violence. In Washington, D.C., in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in New York, we are seeing spikes in violent crime and gun violence. What do all of those cities have in common? D.C., Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York. What do they have in common? Hint, they're nowhere near the Mexican border. Okay, and number 2, on the list of the 10 most dangerous cities to live in 2022, guess what position Houston was on that list? It didn't even make the list. Of the 10 most violent cities, and you look at Tucker Carlson's interview with that police guy, and I don't even want to take my family outside. Houston didn't even rank in the top 10 of most dangerous cities in 2022. Why didn't he mention that? All my sources for all of this information are in the video description. Check my sources. Most of these things were verified across multiple sources, okay? Nationwide homicide rates increased in 2021 under Biden. That's true. Nation homicide rates increased under Biden in 2021. However, they increased by a smaller margin than they did in 2020 under Trump. Why didn't Tucker mention that? In 2020, we saw a 29% increase in the nationwide homicide rate. Under the former guy, under Trump, a 29% increase. Under Biden, it was just 5%. And here's a fun fact. Texas always trends higher in homicide and violent crime than the national average. There's a chart in one of the sources below. Let me repeat that. Texas always trends higher than the national average. Here's another fact. All violent crime is increasing in Houston, not just gun violence, all violent crime. So, these are some of the questions that came up for me listening to Tucker Carlson. He's talking about just guns. Oh, guns. It's the guns that are the illegal guns from cartels because of Biden's open border that are just wreaking havoc on Houston. The fact is, all violent crime is rising in Houston, all of it. This is something that I didn't fact check, but I would guess 99% of those crimes were committed by American citizens. So all violent crime is rising in Houston, not just gun violence. So Tucker didn't talk about that, did he? Why didn't he talk about that? He just focused on guns because he wanted to make a point to scare people, his viewers, into thinking that illegal immigrants are just wreaking havoc, wrecking America. And according to the police, politicians, and experts in Houston, I got multiple sources for this. According to the experts in Houston, not Tucker Carlson, not a talking head pundit, who didn't study journalism, by the way, who apparently didn't do any research for his little talk. According to the experts in Houston, the spike in violent crime is due to, number 1, felony bond violations. Number of violent crimes by people out on bond for violent crimes has quadrupled. So there is an issue with with judges setting bond maybe too low, letting violent criminals, felony criminals, this is different, by the way, from the bond changes they made for misdemeanors, totally different thing. I dug in deep, so it's different. They did not change bond measures for felonies, just for misdemeanors. And the people who are committing crimes are felony criminals who are making bond because it's too low and getting back out on the street and committing more crime. That number has quadrupled. Tucker Carlson didn't talk about that. Also, they say another part of the reason that they're seeing a spike in violent crimes is because there's a backlog of court cases leaving violent criminals on the streets. You know, before they have to go back and appear and go to prison, they're back on the streets. That is what a lot of experts are saying is the number one reason there is a rise in violent crime and gun crime in Houston. Why didn't Tucker mention that? Eva? Number 2. Tucker claimed that Biden's open borders are the cause of all this gun crime in Houston. It's all because of Biden. That's what he said, right? That all this started happening when Biden took office. He used footage from last September of Democrats in Congress proposing to end Title 42 as proof that all liberals want the borders to be wide open. We want to welcome cartels and drugs and guns, that we don't care about American families, that we don't care about keeping the streets safe. We just don't care. We want to invite everybody, all the criminals and crime and drugs and guns. Have you stopped to think about that? Does that make any sense at all? Title 42 is very complicated, and it could take a whole other video, so I'm not going to go into depth on it, but basically Title 42 is a policy that Trump brought back, which during the pandemic basically said that because of a communicable disease and danger to American people, when anybody shows up at the border, we can put them in a bus and just ship them back. That's it. That's what Title 42 is in a nutshell. Very simple form of it. The problem with that is that it bypasses our immigration laws. Our immigration laws are in place to process people who come over illegally and legally, to decide what to do with them, but especially illegally. Our immigration laws progress people who come here illegally, process that so that if they're caught being here illegally, they get punished. They can't come back to the United States. They can't even try legally. If they get caught coming in under immigration law, if they get caught coming in, they get sent back. They're on record, facial, probably fingerprints, ID, all that. And if they try to come back legally, they can't. That's the punishment for trying to come over illegally. Did you know that? Title 42 bypasses all of that. It puts them on a bus and sends them back without the sanctions, without the punishment, which means under Title 42, you can send them back. The next day they can try again. The next day they can try again. And they know they're not going to get punished. They just keep getting sent back. And one of these days, maybe they'll make it across. So big part of the reason Democrats don't like Title 42 is because it bypasses our laws. It bypasses, it's a quick fix for a president who wants his numbers to look good, right? Under the former guy. We implement Title 42, and it looks like I'm shipping back 300, that I've caught 300 immigrants, right? But 100 of them have tried to cross 3 times because we didn't put any sanctions in place to prevent them from trying again. They weren't scared enough that they would lose privileges forever to try it legally. So it inflates the numbers. It makes you look tougher on border crimes than you really are, because it bypasses everything that we have in place to prevent them from trying again. It's a temporary solution. It's not a long-term fix. And here are some facts. Last September, the Biden administration launched the largest Title 42 air blitz to date, expelling 10,000 deportees to Haiti in 3 months. Biden also, despite all the pressure from Democrats, is extending Title 42. Why didn't Tucker talk about that? He showed Chuck Schumer pleading with Congress to end Title 42. That's what he showed, but he didn't show that Biden extended it. Wouldn't you ask why? Why would he show somebody making a losing argument? Unless he wants you to think that Biden is pro keeping the borders wide open. So he showed Chuck Schumer pleading with Congress to end Title 42, but he didn't tell you that Biden extended Title 42, that Biden has extended many of the same border policies that Trump had. That's a fact. All you have to do is look it up. I did. I'm just a woman with a computer. Ask yourself, why would Tucker Carlson show Chuck Schumer making a losing argument and not tell you that Biden extended Title 42? Even under pressure from his own party, he extended it. Okay, and number 3, I saved the best for last. He shows a clip of some body cam footage of police going to round up a drug offender, I think it was. And this video is from September 2021. And he uses that because there's rapid gunfire by the criminal. And I think some police died in that one. Unfortunately, I think a couple police officers died in that one. And he uses that clip to say, look at this. This isn't normal in America. This doesn't happen in other cities. This is only happening in Houston. This is a war-level gun. This is not a normal gun you get in the United States. The only way these guns could get here is through the Mexican cartel. They are being smuggled through Joe Biden's open borders. That's what he says. Almost verbatim, probably. So he uses that clip. That's the one that really got me. He uses that clip of a guy, rapid round machine gun like fire, to say all violent gun crime in Houston is Joe Biden's fault because guns are getting smuggled. The cartel is spilling into America. This is an example of that. So the first question I had when I saw that is, I want to see a police report that says that this is a smuggled gun from a cartel. Do you think I found it? Of course not. Guess what I did find? And again, Tucker Carlson is making it sound like that type of gun is only happening in Houston because it's so close to the border. But the fact is that the #1 city for violent crime and gun violence is actually Chicago. Chicago is also experiencing this same type of weapon, this same spike in violent crime, this same spike in gun violence, using the same type of weapon. Here are a couple facts for you that Tucker Carlson didn't talk about. More than 3,600 guns were stolen in Houston last year. And most of them, or many of them, ended up showing up in homicide situations. He didn't say that. 3,600 guns were stolen last year, showing up in homicides. Not cartel machine guns, stolen guns. Here's another fun fact that he didn't mention. The states with the most gun deaths per capita are Alaska, Montana, Missouri, Louisiana, and Mississippi, and Alabama. Guess what? They also have some of the most lenient gun laws. He didn't talk about that. Why does Fox News never talk about the problem with guns in America and the fact that maybe there are just too many guns on the street? It's interesting, and this is what I found so mind-boggling about his argument. He made the argument for guns being a problem without saying that the gun laws in America are the problem. And that's what I found. That was like one of the aha moments for me. He's admitting that guns on the streets are a problem, but instead of admitting that maybe we need to make some changes to gun laws in America, he blames it on illegal exportation of war guns from cartels. Illegal smuggling. So finally, let's talk about the police video of the shootout that he features in his video, and claims that the weapon used was a warlike gun. It was the same as the Mexican cartels used. That's what he said. He's like, this is a gun of war. The only way he could have gotten this gun is if it was smuggled from the cartels across Joe Biden's open borders. Well, Eva, I'm sorry, but Tucker Carlson lied to you about that. There's no other way to say it. He lied. I've read multiple reports about that shooting, and guess what? The gun he used was a legal gun that you can get anywhere in the United States. It was a legal semi-automatic weapon with one minor modification. That modification is called a Glock switch. It's about the size of a coin. You put it in any semi-automatic weapon, and you suddenly have a machine gun that can shoot 30 rounds in 2.2 seconds. That video that Tucker Carlson showed you to prove that cartel war weapons are being smuggled into Houston, causing all this crime, was a lie. It was actually a legal U.S. gun with an illegal modification. Mostly illegal. There are legal versions of this Glock switch, but you have to have special licensing and all kinds of permits for it. So one of my sources interviewed a Texas gun shop owner who has the legal version of the Glock switch in his shop for rent, but only to be used on site. So here's a gun guy, okay? This is a gun guy interviewed by the news about this Glock switch, which is showing up in more and more crimes in the city, is responsible for more and more homicides in the city, because for one thing, once you put this this modification on a gun, it's a lot harder to control. You can't control it. It flies all over the place, so innocent bystanders on the street get murdered, and that adds to the murder count. You know, gangs are using them. So gangs put these on and they're like, you know, street cred, I got a Glock switch, and so I got a machine gun now. Not a Mexican cartel machine gun, but an American made, wait, we're going to get to that actually, but an American modified machine gun that gangs are now using. And when there are disagreements or fights or whatever among gang members, because this modification makes the weapon so difficult to control, innocent bystanders are now getting killed, increasing the homicide rate. Milankowski, the owner of the gun shop, what he said, and this is a quote, "Houston's not any different than any other city, although it is magnified a little bit. Chicago's having a big challenge. Washington, D.C. is having a big challenge. And other places around the country are also having this challenge for the same reason, the Glock switch. They are illegal to manufacture them, illegal to possess them, illegal to sell them." And he went on to say, "Many of these illegal devices are manufactured in foreign countries and shipped illegally to the United States under the guise of toys or accessories." End of quote. Social media sites, store sites sell these online and ship them, labeling them as toys or accessories, shipping them. They are being bought online through the internet. Guess where they're coming from? 3 guesses. Your first 2 don't count. Many of you might say Mexico. China. China. Why didn't Tucker Carlson talk about Glock switches? Why didn't Tucker Carlson tell you that the gun used to kill those police officers in that video that he showed you from last September was in fact a modified legal weapon, modified with a Glock switch? Why didn't he tell you that? Eva, why didn't he tell you that? Why did he lie to you and tell you that it was a smuggled cartel weapon from Mexico? So according to a lot of my sources and in the video description below, and this gun shop owner, the huge explosion of gun violence that Houston is seeing is due to the Glock switch. The ability to get a Glock switch cup and the easy ability to buy guns, because guns are so legal and the laws are so lenient in Texas, coupled with the rise in violent crimes, the criminals on the streets, is what's creating this explosion of crime and gun violence in Houston. Nowhere in my research, nowhere, I read a dozen, maybe 20 different sources, not one mentioned the rise in violent crime due to illegal immigration, drug smuggling, cartels, or gun smuggling. Not one. Why would Tucker Carlson tell you that's the cause? I hope you'll think about that. So in closing, Eva, I hope you're still here. I hope you heard what I said. Again, I'm not some guy on TV making millions of dollars who's supposed to be a journalist or a newsman, and he's not. He's no different from me. No education in journalism. He's not a journalist. I'm a woman with a computer, and I was able to fact check and to find data about the things that he said that were proven to be lies, unfactual at the very least. You can do it too, and I hope you will. Don't take my word for it. Do not take my word for anything I have told you. Don't even use my sources if you don't want to. Go do your own research. And then ask yourself, why would Tucker Carlson tell me these things if they aren't true? I also want to say one more thing to those of you who might be Tucker Carlson viewers. I don't just fact check people I don't agree with. There have been several memes going around Twitter lately, sometimes even MSNBC or CNN if I'm watching, or CBS. If I hear something, even if it's like, oh, hell yeah. An example, I heard on Twitter the other day, or I read on Twitter, that a former KGB officer verified that Trump has been an asset of Putin for 40 years. Breaking news, and everybody was sharing it. Thousands, tens of thousands have shared. I researched it. It's like, yeah, okay, that sounds great, and it would be great if it's true, but I want to know. It didn't give a source. It didn't tell me where that came from. It was some guy I'd never heard of. Doesn't appear to be a journalist. Breaking news. Thousands of people are sharing it, but I couldn't find a source. Where is this source? Who said this? Where is the proof? I couldn't find it, so I didn't share it, and I don't believe it until I see proof. So I don't just fact check things I don't agree with. I fact check things that just don't seem quite right. That maybe the line between A to Z happened too fast with no substance in between. No hows or whys or whats. No proof, no data, no sources. I never hear Tucker Carlson mention a source, ever. He didn't mention a single source in this video claiming that all the problems that Houston is having are because of Joe Biden's open border policies. That was the point he wanted to make, and he said whatever he needed to say to make that point, whether it was fact or not. So here's my challenge to you. Do your research. Fact check. Even if it's something that you want to believe wholeheartedly with every cell in your being, fact check it. And I just want to leave you with one thought. And I hope that you are able to recognize it and maybe able to contemplate it before you turn on the news again. Why would he lie to you? All right, that's what I'm going to leave you with for now. I will see you next time. Thank you for being here.